you're going to leverage anybody, leverage the powers. I've been thinking about the collective rising that humanity is trying to do, that I sense humanity is trying to do. And for that to happen, I believe we have to get out of our own way first, because we block ourselves subconsciously, and we have to get out of each other's way, especially our fellow bottom 90%ers. So it may sound a little political today. That's a trigger warning. And then as we get out of each other's way, we have to figure out how to thwart the plans of the psychopaths who are running things. And it may be only at a human level, but it may be at a spiritual level too, at a metaphysical level, which to me just means a higher level of science that we don't understand. And at that level, I believe that whatever beings are there, think of us as cattle or pets, and they may love us, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like we are being penned in. If you go back to COVID and the stimulus relief and how neither the Democrats nor the Republicans wanted to help the workers, they wanted to bail out the big banks. You can go back to either administration, either kind of administration over many years. I argue this on Howl Underground if you ever want to go back and check those out. Doesn't matter if it's a Democratic president or a Congress or a Republican president or a Congress. What happens is the laws always favor the few rich psychopaths at the top, because the few rich psychopaths at the top own our government and they own us. So for us to help each other rise in this collective consciousness, as we become expanded in our consciousness, we need to get out of our own way, we need to get out of each other's way, our fellow bottom 90%ers, and then we need to work together to dismantle the psychopaths at the top. And dismantle, I don't know what you read into that word, but I'm thinking guillotines. And that's why my Howl Underground channel had strikes and warnings, and algorithmically they took me out. You're not supposed to be able to say things like that where people can hear them and get away with it. So I think for the collective rising to happen, we have to get out from under the thumbs of our oppressors. If our oppressors are all human, we have a better chance. If there is a mixture of good faith and bad faith people at the top who control things, we also have a chance. Whether that be physical or metaphysical. But if everyone above us is working in concert to keep us in our sheep pastures, in our pens, then we're going to need a rebellion. We're going to need to dump the tea into the harbor and get the guillotines and the pitchforks ready. Personally, I don't know how you feel about the Second Amendment. I see the point of the Second Amendment as a way to resist an oppressive government. I don't see it as being about hunting. It's about being as powerful as our, quote, representatives in government who don't represent us at all. And even lightly armed, there are so many of us that we can't be held down any longer. And you feel the sentiment the world over with the Yellow Vest movement. It's funny when I talk to people who watch all the different corporate news, they don't know anything about it. The Yellow Vest movement. They don't know about trucker strikes around the world. They don't know about political unrest and riots and strikes. We just aren't supposed to hear about that because we might get ideas. But it's happening. It's trying to happen the world over. This rising, this escape from oppression. Because consciously, thinking in terms of our consciousness, we can't rise in enslavement. We can't be slaves and vibrate at our highest levels. What happens in our culture now is that the thought police, the narrative managers who own the news media, turn us against each other. They make distrust each other and blame each other. And we have to stop doing that if we're going to rise up. So when we see local psychopaths, when we see people that we know personally, we can resist them for sure. But if there's any way not to hinder each other, if there's any way not to impede each other, like maybe there are people who operate mostly in bad faith but have the potential to operate somewhat in good faith. Maybe people operate mostly in good faith and only have bad moments occasionally, which piss you off, so then you want them to be your enemy all the time. But we need to work together with our fellow 90% against the professional managerial class who have sold out, who have sold us out, and then up above that. We need to stop sucking up to power at the local level, and we need to keep out of each other's way when we, at least, and help each other at best, as we wake up to how enslaved we are, especially our thoughts, as we wake up to how the media have brainwashed us. And that is a necessary step for our collective rising, but it's really difficult to rise individually in the climate we live in now. We need to encourage the individual people who become leaders just by example, and then we need to follow them into a better future where our planet can thrive, where we can stop burning fossil fuels, we can act like things besides profits matter. There are lots of other ancillary topics here that I won't jump into now, but I just wanted to say that if you're throwing off oppression of, we've talked about gaslighting psychopaths in the past, do your best to keep the big picture in your mind and thwart the powers, the man, however you want to say it. And we've had these sentiments in the past, and you can see what happened. Powers have closed ranks and shut us down. There have been a number of attempts in the past to rise up against the powers. And all of those, we need to study those. We need to figure out how we were thwarted in the past, and we need to use our brain power to figure out how to resist better, how to resist the resistance. I think it's possible. I feel like it's trying to happen more and more and more. It feels like a kettle that's simmering and it's going to boil over soon. And I think I'll even live to see it. And I'm not afraid, not even on behalf of my children and grandchildren, do more for our self-development than comfortable times. So I'm not afraid that they're going to face uncomfortable times or even terrifying times, because that gives their souls a potential leveling up opportunity. As I look into the crystal ball, I just can't help but feel that it's inevitable and that we'll all see it soon. Now, if this channel was not already batshit enough for you, I'm pretty sure it's more batshit than just about any channel you've encountered. Think about the collective will of the top, the oligarchy.
Police reported ahead.
Compared to the collective will of the bottom 90%, or even bottom 99%, or even bottom 99.9%, that would be a good collective if they all stuck together without the suck-ups. But I digress. If you think about how that structure works, which is bottom up, the wealth rises from the bottom up, and the point of having so many people
Continue
is to make a few
176.
people at the top rich. That's why they pay welfare moms to have more babies, and in every aspect trying to get as many poor obedient people as possible. You know, if you're a farmer, you want your crops, you want your livestock to breed, and you want to raise them as cheaply as you can, and then you take them to market. And that's what's happening in our culture. So if you think about it, it's in the best interests of that top ruling part to control us with our emotions. So one way to do it is to make sure we eat food that's not healthy, that keeps us depressed, if you think about it. I mean, even if it's just because we're bloated, but it's possible, in my mind at least, in my batshit perspective, that food is designed not only to be addictive and to engorge us, because that fattens the profits too. The larger each person is, the bigger the margin is for food sales. But also, to keep people depressed, I think it's big business. If you think about the pharmaceuticals corporations, having a bunch of fat, depressed humans is good business. Goldman Sachs had a leaked email that said curing cancer is not a sustainable business model, and curing obesity and curing anxiety and curing depression, they don't have any interest in doing that. They don't have any incentive to do that. Think about it, think about it, think about it. If you just ponder, you realize, based on incentives only, which is a pretty good predictor of how human beings behave, the only incentives are to keep us unhealthy and unhappy. There isn't any incentive to do otherwise. Russell Brand talks about the motivation of the rich. What are they motivated to do and not to do? And pharmaceuticals corporations are at least as evil as cigarette companies. And potato chip manufacturers are not that far behind. I have a friend who told me his sister is a food scientist who does her best to make potato chips unhealthy and irresistible. And she told him that the larger the customer is, the bigger the profit is per customer, at least until they die. And that's kind of how it works with, well, it's very cynical, but I'm sure that's how it works with cancer, because Monsanto, as an example, it produces chemicals that cause cancer, known to cause cancer. Glyphosates cause cancer. that's Roundup. And they also make products that treat cancer, not cure cancer, but treat cancer. So you have this beautiful vicious circle of causing the problem and paying, people are paying you for the products that cause them cancer, and they're paying you for the products that treat the cancer. So they're paying you and paying you and paying you. No wonder they want us to have a bigger population of bigger people. So that's why we need to rise up collectively and wake up. We need better information. We need to stop watching corporate news, which is pretty much all the news that anybody ever consumes. And with that better information, we need to help each other resist. We need to build each other up, encourage each other. It takes a lot of willpower not to go where they're trying to get us to go. We are cowed. If you think about cows, you can bluff a cow. Some cows are harder to bluff than others, but pretty much every cow
reported on I-76.
But pretty much every cow can be cowed. And then you can make them do what you want them to do. Even though they're much bigger, for some reason, when you wave your hands in their face, they'll usually turn and go a different direction. And that's how we are. We're cowed. If we were more like bears, it would be harder to hurt us. A bear would just look at you. Although it's probably possible to bluff a bear too. I'd rather that we became the kind of animals that are very difficult to herd. Related to that, if we want to figure out a way to stop being addicted to opioids or methamphetamine or whatever, alcohol, or prescription drugs, and make buku bucks for the pharmaceuticals company. If we want to figure out how to wean ourselves from needing to pay them to treat the maladies that they're causing us, we're going to really need to work together. I said a few days ago that you can choose how you feel about things. Obviously, you can choose how you think about things, although a lot of people don't realize that power. But even if you don't change the way you think about things, you can change the way you feel about things. And that's a superpower for sure. So if you pay attention and you concentrate and you figure out how to choose your emotions in every moment, you'll become a lot less addictive, a lot less addicted, and things will start to go up, spiral up for all of us. I see people who talk to each other about the kind of medications they're on, and there's almost a wannabe club. Like, it's almost, I know that it's a difficult topic, but it feels like if we had more people not bragging that they don't need medications, but more people who don't need medications, it might encourage a different kind of progression than we're seeing now. Because as far as I can tell, just about everybody is on some kind of medication, and for mental problems. It's a big industry, and I believe that it contributes to our enslavement. I think that's really obvious, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. As always, I'd be very interested to know what you think. every time I go by this exit, Prospect Road, my GPS, my Waze GPS says exit right. And if I go that way on Prospect Road, there's a bridge that's 12 feet 6 inches tall. And this truck is taller than that. So
In a quarter of a mile, exit right.
she says exit right. She's suggesting that I not only think about it, but that I actually exit right. And when you're driving, wherever you steer, that's where your vehicle goes.
Exit right.
Notice, she says exit right, but I don't do it.
In 0.1 miles, turn left.
And then notice what happens when I don't, when she figures out, she makes that sound, and then she changes. Now she's telling me to exit where I need to exit if I'm driving a big truck. And similarly, our minds suggest emotions that we should feel. They see the situation and then they suggest an emotion. And unlike Waze, who will always suggest that turn there, no matter how often I ignore her, our minds are smarter. Eventually our minds give up. When we keep ignoring the suggestions, then they go away and we don't hear them anymore. It would be catastrophic to go under that bridge, and it's also on a sharp corner and it's very narrow, so I don't know how many points of contact there would be. It would be a disaster to go that way, and some of the emotions that are suggested to us to feel are similarly damaging. And so we know better. We know what to think about it. So we have to act on those thoughts, and we have to steer our vehicle somewhere else. Because otherwise, wherever we steer, that's where we're going to end up. And to steer, we have to be conscious of where we're steering. We have to pay attention. Every time a suggestion comes that would lead to a bad result, we have to steer somewhere else. It's a no-spin day. We have to spin that
In
into
1 mile,
something good.
arrive at home, on the right.
We have to figure out why a no-spin day is the best ever. So, as it turns out, it is a spin day.